I get excited actually when I talk to candidates and they say, I'm all in. I'm gonna gut this thing out. I'm gonna grind for 2 years. I'm quitting my corporate job. I get excited for those people.
They're gonna make it.
I do, because I just say, man, you are what franchisors are looking for.
We were able to accelerate our business, accelerate our profitability because the owner took the time to roll up their sleeves and get involved. Had we not, we probably would have taken twice or 3 times as long to get where we were. We probably wouldn't have had the exit strategy we did. So I became a believer right out of the gate. If you're gonna sign on that franchise agreement dotted line, you gotta get involved with it. We lived it. Why do you think it's so important for the franchisor to put it in their documentation that you need 3 to 6 months of living expenses? Why do you think they're doing that?
Right.
And again, we can just sometimes ask the question and then shut up, let it sink in, because that's important. If I get an SBA loan, I could borrow 6 months of living expenses. I said, that's not only can you, the bank will want you to do that, the franchisor will want you to do that because they want you to succeed. That's what they want. So if you want to succeed, that's part of following that playbook.
Welcome to the Zero to Profitable Franchise Podcast, the best place for you to come to figure out the right franchise to buy and how to get and stay profitable. My name is Tarek Johnson, and I've bought, grown, and sold multiple franchises and got myself free from corporate America, and now I'm on a mission to help you do that too. Here you'll find some of the most in-depth profitable franchise secrets, tangible strategies, and specific mindsets to help you create your dream life through franchising. All right, so let's talk about owning a franchise part-time for those people who are like, hey, I want to keep my job versus go all in the business.
I use a 3-legged stool analogy with potential franchisees. And the reason it's a 3-legged stool is if you have a 3-legged stool and one leg breaks, the stool falls down. So all 3 legs have to work in conjunction with each other. And the 3 stools represent, each leg of the stool represents something a really successful franchise owner should be good at or be willing to get good at. And there are 3, and in no necessary order: hiring, training, developing, maintaining a staff, being able to lead and manage a team of whether it's blue-collar technical people or salespeople. Managing a staff is critical important. So, Mr. or Mrs. Candidate, are you comfortable in that role? Have you experienced in that role? Would you be willing to learn about that role? That's the first leg of the stool. The second is kind of like mayor of the community, right? You got to get out there into the community and let the people know about you. Now, the great thing about really good franchise brands is they've got this national marketing approach that's going to overlay on top of whatever you do on a local level, and they're going to give you that local marketing playbook. But what the franchisor isn't going to do is they're not going to come into your territory and contact the local youth sports programs to partner with them and market that. They're not going to join the local BNI groups on your behalf. So you have to be willing to get out into the community and network yourself to be the mayor of the community. That's the second leg of the stool. And the third leg is someone's got to be able to close deals when leads come in, because the franchisors are going to be filling up your calendar with leads because that's how they help you. Someone's got to be able to close those leads, make sure the jobs get executed with excellence, and then make sure you ask those people for that 5-star review at the end of the day, because in the world we live in today, the 5-star review is everything. So that's the third leg. So if you're not willing to lead, build, manage a team, get out in the local community and create an awareness, and be the sales and customer support end of your business, then please make sure you have somebody who can. But if the answer to those are no, then you're really, I don't recommend you go forward, because I don't think you're going to be able to maximize that return on your investment, causing you to become frustrated.
Great points, because I think most people have this perception that it's a franchise, it's a national brand, or at least heading that way, so I don't have to do anything. I can just sit back. I can turn the on sign on. There's a marketing. It clicked on. Now I don't have to do anything. All the leads are going to come through here. And every once in a while you have that candidate that does say that. They say, I'm really just not comfortable getting in front of people.
Right.
I'm just not really comfortable talking to homeowners or whatever. I'm just not comfortable. And my first instinct is don't do this.
Right.
Because you're just not ready to do it. Or are you good at least leading, like you said? Are you good at least leading a team? Can you build a team? Are you willing to having to understand that you're going to have to hire somebody to do those kind of different areas that you're not comfortable in. And you're going to probably have to hire a good person, somebody who's going to be well qualified. So it's probably going to be eaten into a little bit of your profits and things like that, because now you're taking yourself out of that. A lot of times I like to tell people, I get excited actually when I talk to candidates and they say, I'm all in. I'm going to gut this thing out. I'm going to grind for 2 years. I'm quitting my corporate job. I get excited for those people.
They're going to make it.
I do, because I just say, man, you are what franchisors are looking for. You're burning the boats, you're getting out there, and you're like, this is the only thing I'm doing. I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to be putting that hat on or whatever, and I'm going to go out there, I'm going to talk to people, I'm going to be just hustling. I said, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, no doubt. And those people tend to go through the system very quickly.
Yep. And then the ones that are like, well, I'm going to keep a little foot into the corporate world, and I'm going to do this a little bit on the side. Full honesty, I say, well, it may take you longer to get to the numbers that you're looking for. It's okay, you can. I mean, it's possible, but just know there's still a grind aspect of any business. This is not just, most people's perception, we talked about it before, is mom and pop. It's right from the very beginning. It's fresh. It's 0-0. I said, this is the same thing. This is the same thing. You are starting a brand new business, but the franchisor is going to help you launch you faster. They're going to push you right to the front line very quickly. So with that being said, it's still a grind. So are you willing? Are you really capable of working part-time and basically say on Saturdays and Sundays in the evenings? People like to look at themselves, look in the mirror and say, I can do it. I'm like, can you do that? Because if you can't, then maybe it's not a good opportunity for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think part of the struggle with people that way, as we all know, there's a lot of very bad franchises out there. Right? We don't work with any of them. We select not to. But the semi-passive concept is the fault of bad franchisors.
It's true.
Right? The people the franchises that all they really want is that franchise fee, and they don't really care about the success of the network, are going to tell people, yeah, are you kidding me, Chris? You can keep your full-time job. Just write the check for $59,000 that won't bounce, and you're a franchisee. If you want to work 2 hours. So we have to overcome that. And the good franchises that we work with don't do that. They will say that's not. So to your point,
right,
we have to actually undo a lot of the bad that has been out there for years. Because in our opinion, I think, when I say our, I mean you and I know you feel the same way, Tarek. If you're not going to be full-time in this business, it's really going to be something you should probably stay away from, because you're right. Your point about the results are going to come slower, but what's really going to happen is you're going to get frustrated. Yeah. Your spouse might say, where's the money you promised me? You might have to dip in. Who knows what's going to happen? And inevitably, you'll just bail. And then when somebody else calls you up and says, hey, would you be part of that another candidate calls to validate and says, hey, Chris, would you buy that franchise again? You're going to say, no, there's no way I would do it. I lost all my money. Yeah. Well, it wasn't the franchise that made you lose the money. It was you're not following that book. So there's a lot of stuff that goes in there that we kind of have to undo. But when anybody uses semi-passive, I'm like, oh, it's just a cringe, because there's no such thing as semi-passive if it's your own business and your own house on the line. It's like, I just don't understand how anything can be semi-anything. But we deal with that a lot.
Hey, so I recently put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that make $1 million or more. If you want to see that list, then click the link below in the description or go to franchiseempire.com/low cost. Let's get back to the episode.
I used to go to a lot of these conferences, or not conferences, but like expos, and I used to have a lot of people come and say, well, I want it to be a low investment, high returns, and passive, like semi-absentee.
Don't we all?
I was like, don't we all?
Yeah, you know what I tell people? I'm like, call your stockbroker and write them a check.
Yeah.
Invest in the market.
Exactly.
That's very low risk. Yeah. Put in whatever you want, and the return could be good. That's what you should do. But it's funny you say that, because sometimes people really view that. They think buying a franchise is the same as investing in them. You can make passive investments in this world.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I also like to bring up the fact that, yes, everybody's going to know somebody who owns X franchise. And they probably have a nice boat. They're out on a Saturday or a Friday golfing. Maybe they've got a lot of time on their hands. But I always come to the realization of saying, well, how long have they had it?
Right.
do you know what they did to get there? You know, or I'll have a really qualified person that's ultra successful in the corporate world. I mean, really has done it over the top just yesterday. And I right away just say, are you willing to put in and build something? Because you've been very successful in your corporate life, like very successful.
You're willing to start over, basically.
Are you willing to start over? Now, you can buy some multiple territories and really scale a pretty cool operation if you're willing to put in the time, the effort, and definitely some money. And I like to say it to them right away, because right away in their mind, they're like, well, I've been making $500,000 a year, $1 million a year. That's what I want. Okay. You can do it through franchising, but it's going to take a little bit, because you're going to have to scale, you're going to have to build and everything else. And so I like to make sure, like, are you comfortable doing that? And some will say no. I'm like, well, go to the market.
Yeah.
Go find something else.
Or if you're making $500,000 a year, keep your damn job. I mean, there's $500,000 a year.
That's
Come
what
on,
I say,
what
yeah.
are you looking for?
I know.
Good for you.
Is it that bad?
You've reached the top of your industry. Why are you talking to me? You know, so that's the other part of it. So I'll share this story because I'm passionate about this because I lived it. You know, when we invested in Five Guys back in 2007, I had a small marketing company. I was a self-employed small business owner, but I wasn't. You know, I had a team. I was building it up. That was what I was going to make. That was going to be my career. When we got involved with Five Guys, I was an investor. I put in my money, and we did what Five Guys suggested. You know, you guys aren't restaurant guys. So you want to hire a restaurant guy. If you want to do it right, if you want to follow our playbook, hire that restaurant guy out of the gate, pay him what he's worth, which was a tough pill to swallow, because not only are we investing in 20 territories up front, but now you're paying $120,000 to a director of operations day one when you don't have any revenue coming in. But we did that. We said, okay, if that's what you say that we should do, we signed on to become franchisees because we believe in the model, so we'll do that. So we did that. We hired a guy, and we a very experienced guy, and we gave him, after a few months, he ultimately got equity in our business. It turned out to be a successful story. It didn't have the best ending, but that's okay. But my role, my partner lived in Virginia. I was in Boston where the business was, so my partner was always going to be just an investor, because he couldn't be involved, and I had a full-time business. So we didn't know what we didn't know. We said, we're going to do what you said, hire that director. And then we opened up our first restaurant, and it was great. We had this director of operations who hired the general manager, and I'm like, thank God I couldn't do that job. I mean, thank God we have that guy. But then we said to ourselves, how are we going to get the next one built? Who's going to do that? This guy's doing his full-time job is running the restaurant for us. That was what we hired him for, building up the infrastructure, getting management in place. How are we going to get that second one? So my partner would call me and be like, how are we doing on getting that second location? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm selling ads on movie screens. That's my business. What are you talking about? So the reason I tell the story is we decided, boy, as an owner, I can't really be passive in this business if we want to accomplish our objectives, which was building 20 of these in 10 years.
Right.
So I had to make a hard decision. I sold my business. I got involved full time into the Five Guys business, but also part of that was, if I'm going to be full time here and this director of operations is reporting to me, I got to know a little bit more about the restaurant business than nothing. So I had to get in, and I worked in the restaurant, and I made burgers, and I made fries, and I came home smelling like peanut oil every single night. I got to be honest, I hated it, but for a year and a half, that's what we did. And then because I was involved full time, we went from, our goal in the first year was to get 2 opened. We got 4 opened. Our goal the second year initially was to open 2. We opened up 4. So we were able to accelerate our business, accelerate our profitability, because the owner took the time to roll up their sleeves and get involved. Had we not, we probably would have taken twice or 3 times as long to get where we were. We probably wouldn't have had the exit strategy we did. So I became a believer right out of the gate. If you're going to sign on that franchise agreement dotted line, you got to get involved with it. We lived it. Yeah. So I don't have any other ability to tell people not to.
All right. So there are a lot of people considering if they should buy a franchise. Maybe they're just dabbling in it. But the reality is that buying a franchise is not for everyone. And there are people who should not buy franchises. What's your thoughts on that, Chris?
Certain people have perception of a franchisor's responsibility. I think that's partly there's to a certain level thinking that the franchisor is going to do everything for you. You know, I think when people have an idea of a franchise, I mean, obviously the first thing most people think is right. They think of a fast food place, right away. And they think, okay, I'm buying into this national franchise. They're going to do all my marketing for me. They're going to do everything, all the ads and everything else. So I just kick back and just kind of take the orders. They don't realize there's a little bit more to it, especially in the type of franchises that, service and even retail and things like that. But I think that the perception is usually where it lies, the perception of what a franchisor's responsibility kind of entails. So yes, lead generation should be probably one of the first questions that someone's trying to analyze a franchise. Like, is this something that I can do? Because there's going to be a level where the franchisor is saying, I'm going to assist you to get to X, and you have to do the rest of it. Can you do the rest of it? Are you willing to do the rest of it? Are you willing to accept that the franchisor is not going to make magic? They just don't have a magic 8-ball that's just going to tell you, every month we're going to send you 10, 15, 20 qualified leads. No, they're going to help you get you the ammunition you need to go out there and hunt. But you still have to hunt.
No doubt.
And I think that's where some people should not buy a franchise when they really believe that, hey, I'm just going to kick back. I really don't have to go out and do anything. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, it's tough to answer the question without going back into how much time they want to get involved in it. But obviously, if they don't, if they have to divert themselves of every investment they have, and they're putting every penny of their whole lives into that business to afford it, that might not be the right way to go, right? So you have to have an affordability perspective, right? You have to either be able to borrow money that isn't going to put, what you don't want to do is, running a franchise business is stressful and anxiety ridden enough. You don't need the burden of knowing that you can't make your mortgage payment the next week because you started it. So, a lot of what we do is talking to them about financial capability and what are they willing to risk vis-a-vis their net worth. It's one of the reasons we dive into people's net worth, right? How much do you have available and how much of that are you willing to? So that's a big part of it. If they're putting everything in, that usually is something, I've said to people, you know what, go figure out a way to bank another $80,000 to $100,000 over the next couple of years, then come back. So I think that's definitely one. And again, what you say makes the perfect sense is how involved do you want to be in that business? Now, there are opportunities for people who want to invest in businesses and not commit full time to it. And we laugh.
There's always vending machines.
That's my example. That's what I say. I mean, I like vending machines as a business.
Yeah.
But so when I say that to people, and it's usually kind of funny because I'm laughing, like as I'm speaking to the person, I'm kind of laughing and chuckling to myself because I know what's going to happen. But say, listen, Tarek, you want to keep your full-time job, you really want to invest in a business, but you don't want to put any time to it. Well, I could introduce you to something like a vending machine concept, where you buy 10 vending machines, you place them strategically. All you got to do once a week is get there, make sure they're clean, make sure they're stacked, get the money. You can run it, it's mobile, you can run it from home. Now you work full time. On the weekends, you spend a few hours, and now you got a business. There's a guy, and this is a true story, there's a guy out in Chicago, the guys at Natural To Go told me this. He bought about 20 vending machines 10 years ago. He's got like 200 of them now. So now it's a thriving buhrbusiness.
Wow.
So you can turn the vending business into something, but if you don't want to work at it, you don't have time, you want to keep your job, what about vending? Yeah. And inevitably they're like, yeah, I'm not going to buy a vending machine. Like, I didn't think you were, but they're saying if you don't want to buy that,
it's an option.
That's a way you can accomplish what you're looking at. But what it also does is it gets people thinking about what you were talking about is, okay, because most people just don't get it. They don't know what they don't know when they come to us. And they believe that they can invest in a business and not work it. And when you explain that to them, they're like, so my options are quitting my job and diving in full time, which I get. If I need to keep my job, you're saying that I should buy a vending machine. I'm like, well, I said,
kind of.
I said it's a metaphor, but yes, directionally, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, either I'll call you back if I want to go further, which is okay, or that you gave me a lot of great things to think about. Let's talk further, which means they now get it. So that's our job. But those are the people that would probably. So I guess using Chris's point, and the other one is, boy, you just got to be able to afford
Yeah.
the investment in a business, and you have to be able to afford the time it's going to take to get that return on that investment back and make a solid business.
Hey, so if you want to learn the right way to own a money-making franchise without putting your family at risk financially, then check out our free masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the episode.
And I also think the fact with Franchise Empire, that's what we do. We really do look at finances. I mean, I like to even come out and say, listen, we ask these questions of liquidity and net worth, not because we're just curious. We just want to make sure that you're well capitalized. Franchisors also want to make sure you're well capitalized. Make sure your break even may take a while. It may take a little bit. So are you prepared?
Absolutely.
And also, you don't take all your eggs and put it in one basket. And because there's a lot of people out there. I said, there's a lot of gamblers out there. That's why I don't gamble, because I'm an all-in kind of guy. And I said that's where you have to know where your all-in is, but you have to have a reason. There's a fine line where you have to stop.
Yeah, and on that financial side, many of the brands that we work with, in the item 7 of the FDD, which is where they list the investment criteria, how much it's going to be, they have 3 to 6 months of living expenses as an upfront investment number.
Yeah,
so when you're investing in this franchise, that's part of what they're going to make sure you have. Yeah. Why do they do that? Yeah. They're not doing it because they want you to give them 6 months worth of living expenses. They want to make sure you've got that platform to be able to run this business and do what's required and not worry about where you're going to pay your bills and things like that. So if they're doing it, there's a reason for it, and that's a point that you make to the candidate, which is, why do you think it's so important for the franchisor to put it in their documentation that you need 3 to 6 months of living expenses? Why do you think they're doing that?
Right.
And again, we can just sometimes ask the question and then shut up. A little harder for me to do, but some people are good at it. Ask the question, be silent, let it sink in, because that's important. So you mean I could borrow? If I get an SBA loan, I could borrow 6 months of living expenses? I said, that's not only can you, the bank will want you to do that. The franchisor will want you to do that because they want you to succeed. Right. That's what they want. So if you want to succeed, that's part of following that playbook. So if they're telling you need 6 months worth of living expenses, they're not saying that because they want you to keep your full-time job and run the business. It's really kind of logical. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And they're really, it's really more so like business expenses, right? Like that's really what they're looking for, as opposed to living.
Yeah, well, again, they call it living expenses. It could be whatever you want. I don't think it's for groceries and to pay your lighting bill, but it's set up
or to go to Disney World,
certainly not to do that. But again, the point is, it's in there for a reason.
Yeah,
and it's an example of why you need to have the financial wherewithal. So maybe instead of a $200,000 loan, you've got to make that a $300,000 loan to cover what you need. And now all of a sudden you've got more money that you've got to pay back, but you also now have that ramp of time to commit to getting it done.
Yeah. And I even tell a lot of clients too, just say, hey, that could be a no-go for franchisors. They know what they're looking for. They know what is a success, the mold they're looking for. So if you just say, hey, I'm looking at this as a semi-absentee kind of arrangement, they just say, sorry, we're not interested.
Great point, too, because the reality is, if they sell you a territory, they're not going to resell that territory. The franchisor's obligation is to have a very strong, sturdy, successful, financially sound franchisee network. If they believe you're not going to be able to be that way, it's in their best interest to pass on you and wait for somebody who's going to be a better fit, because they do not want you to buy that territory and not succeed massively. So that's another part where, as a benefit to you, Mr. Potential Franchise Owner, the franchisor is kind of watching out for you by doing it that way. Right. They're kind of telling you that this may not be for you by that. So there's a couple checks and balances along the way.
Yeah. And, for someone who shouldn't buy a franchise is someone who's not going to follow the system. And it sounds like the stupidest thing. It's funny. I was golfing, and I got paired up with this random guy, and they made us ride in the same cart to make it efficient, so we're not two solos riding in separate carts. And the guys, we're talking about what I do, and he's asking me all these questions, and like, what are one of the mistakes people make? And I'm like, well, it's not following the system. When I interview these CEOs and founders of franchisors, every time I ask all of them the same question, like, what's the difference between the franchisees that are successful and not? And they always go, the ones that are not, they don't follow the system and they try to reinvent the wheel. And I don't think it's that people go in with that intention, but it's like, okay, you've been successful in your life and you have ideas and opinions and the way that you want to do things. And so they come into the system and immediately start going, well, I don't like that you guys do things like that, and I don't like that you do things like that. And so, yeah, this is how we want to do it. And then all of a sudden they go, it's not working for me. I'm not seeing the results. And it's like, well, have you followed the system to the T? Well, sort of. I kind of did my own thing. Well, how about this? Try following the system first. And then if you've done that for 6, 8, 9 months, a year, and you followed it to a T and you're not seeing your results, okay, then maybe innovate a little bit, talk to the franchisor.
Great point, Tarek. And again, back to my own personal experience on that. We, as a franchise partnership group, were very attractive to Five Guys because we didn't have the experience. In today's world, lots of franchisors are saying to candidates, you don't need, if you want to run Varsity Zone HVAC business, you don't need HVAC experience to be successful. They say that because they believe they can train you. So that kind of segues into I laugh because this actually happened at my Five Guys franchise owner training. Okay, we knew nothing. My partner and I were there, nervous as get out because we'd already written the check. There was no turning back from that.
And it was cashed.
And it was cashed, yes, very quickly. But there was 4 or 5 groups. And I remember there was this one group from Jersey, a couple of guys, and they were restaurant born, coming out of their mother's wombs in the restaurant business. They've been in the business forever. And they were Jersey guys, so they were Jersey guys. They were good guys. I remember we were out with them the night before. They were fun guys. But they're doing this training. The ops guy's doing the training. And we're writing down notes, like whatever they say, we're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
We don't know nothing else. We're gonna do it this way. Every 30 seconds, one of these 2 guys would raise their hand. Yeah, well, in Jersey, our cost. This is what we're doing on cost of goods. This is how we're able to do it. We buy black market onions and we save $1.50 per pack.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, yeah, well, we don't do that here at Five Guys. And the guy would go on and do his presentation, and then they'd raise their hand 10 minutes later and say something like, yeah, well, we tried this and it worked great for us. And they'd say, well, that's good, but yeah, we don't do it that way. So the other groups that were there were like intent doing it the right way. So wouldn't you know it, when the training ended, they gave the guys back their franchise fee.
Did they?
Oh, wow.
They said, listen, we think we made a mistake. We're going to give you back your fees. We don't think you're going to be a good match because we don't really feel you're going to do the things we need to do.
Wow.
And in Five Guys, it was fresh ingredients and there's no freezers, and that was everything to them.
Yep.
And so that's a great adjunct to your point. They gave them back the franchise fees and said thanks, but no thanks. And those guys took it and said, I think that's right. I don't think this will be a fit because we are rogue. Yeah. We know more about the restaurant business than Five Guys, which may in fact have been true, right? These guys were veterans, and they really had no right being in the franchise business because they didn't want to follow a system. Yeah. And I remember asking them ourselves during a break, why did you guys do this again? Like, why? And again, the answer was because Five Guys. It's going to explode.
Yeah,
and it did.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. Is if you're not going to follow the system and you know that out of the gate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of times, Tarek and Chris, we tell people about that. They're like, of course I'm going to follow the system. Then they get in and don't. And then, there's nothing we can do much. There's not much we can help them with at that point in time.
And you were a franchisor, so I'm sure you experienced that a good bit. How many times did people come in and say, no, Chris, this is how we want to do it?
Well, we would always hear, well, my territory is different. My people are different. My community is different. This is different. This is different. And I'd always say, people don't change. Right. They're not. They're all the same. They are. in reason, there's probably communities, maybe they're a little different. You can factor in a few things. But at the end of the day, yes, absolutely, it always come up. Like, why would you market into that? Why? What? Well, it just sounded like it was a great opportunity. Did anything in our operations and marketing plan ever say to do that? And you paid X, how much? It's just always those back and forth kind of things. And truthfully, yes, our most successful franchise locations, they did. They dove in, doubled. When we told them to spend X, they doubled it and everything else, and they went after it. But yes, it always comes up. Like, I love that movie. I remember watching it for the first time on an airplane. It was the Founders or whatever. Founder.
Oh,
whatever.
The McDonald's. Yeah.
And just
Michael Keaton.
When that one scene, when he's running up in the golf course on the when they were putting, and he's throwing hot dogs. Remember, they're like selling hot dogs or whatever. He's like, we don't sell hot dogs. Or chicken. Was it chicken? Yeah, it was chicken or something like that. Yeah. And I always laughed because that's what happens.
Yeah.
You that's why I always tell, can you follow the system? Can you follow direction? Like, I even say it with candidates now. I'm always now saying, hey, they're going to tell you, I need you to watch these videos. I need you to show up for some calls, and you're going to schedule yourself. So guess what? This is an interview process. They're going to see if you can even follow directions. They're testing you right now, and you don't even know it.
Absolutely.
And you should see these candidates. They're like, really? I'm like, yes. They want to know, are you going to do what they ask you to do? Because if you don't, they're not interested. And I said, and I know they're in the industry of franchising, I think people say, oh, they award territories. They kind of make it like a joke. But for franchisors, like you said, here's your money. We want the territory back. You're not a good fit. Because that gets rid of so many more headaches just doing it right then. And it's the same thing with right now. You don't want to follow the system. You don't want to follow what you're telling me. You've got scheduled calls and then you miss them and then you just don't show up. You have no questions or this, that. Just not a good fit.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because, in our role, we get communicated with by franchisors if our candidates don't show up for meetings. Right. We get notes. And I'm at the point, and I always forward it off to the candidate, like, FYI, you missed your meeting. But
I believe it.
Right? But the reality is, and I don't know what the statistics say, but if they miss that meeting and they don't care, they're out anyway.
Yeah.
They're dead on arrival, right? Yeah. Unless they say, so the Zor will will copy you on the email, and the candidate will come right back and say, Tarek, I'm so sorry, my dog died, and I had to go to the vet. Can we reschedule? They're like, okay, then they're back in.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right, and I tell candidates that. I said, once I'm introducing you to this brand, it's getting real because you're essentially auditioning for an opportunity to take on a very valuable franchise in their world. So don't do it. Don't agree to the introduction if you're not going to show up for the meetings. Right. But again, it's exactly what you want to see, and we need to be able to be pretty good at assessing whether we even want to introduce them if they're not going to have that attitude. And you get people who are lackadaisical, or especially people who've been successful. I'm a CEO of a company. I'll tell them when I'll show up. Yeah. And you're like, you know what? Arrogance is great. It's just not going to work here. Yeah. So why don't you take that back to where you're going to? Because I'm not going to introduce you to a candidate if you're telling me out of the gate you don't know if you're going to be able to accomplish it. Yeah. And a lot of those people with those strong egos who've been successful, they don't want to really be told what to do. And therefore, if you don't want to be told what to do, you don't want to be a franchisee either.
So a silly example of this was when I was in our store. So the franchisor said, I owned a juice and smoothie business. We had to ice bath our kale, carrots, and something else. So it was you cut it up, you prep it, and then you ice bath it you set a timer for 20 or 30 minutes. I forget exactly what it was. And at some point, especially when you start to get really, really busy and you start going through more than what you prepped, right? Then it's like, crap, we got to hurry up and ice bath some kale. And then I start to go, well, hold on. Why are we ice bathing the kale for 30 minutes? And I start questioning the whole thing. Yeah. So I remember calling my regional ops guy, right? My franchise business coach. I'm like, Steve, why do we have to ice bath the kale? Blah, 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 blah. And he was just a real direct kind of guy. He's like, Tarek,
Just shut up and ice bath the kale.
That's
That's the system.
That's the answer.
Just ice
There's
bath
no
the
oth-
kale.
there
We've
is
been
no other
doing this
answer.
for 20 years.
There's no answer. That's
And I
what
was
we have to
like,
do.
okay, I'll ice bath the kale.
That's a good. I can share other ones too. It happens because again, the art of running a successful business, in your case smoothies, in my case hamburger stands, are you got to manage it right. You've got to prep a right amount of food for the day.
Yes.
If you're prepping enough kale to get you through 3 o'clock, that's on you. That's not on the brand.
Yeah.
Right. So that's on you. So can you take a shortcut? No. What you'd have to do is tell your customer, I kind of screwed up. I can't make the kale drink for you. I don't have it. That's the answer. But again, who's going to do that on your business? I get it. We would in Five Guys. It was the fries. The fries had to sit in water for a certain period of time in the walk-in cooler before you could serve them to get the starch out. And inevitably, the lunch rush would come in. I'd walk into the restaurant and we're serving fries that had just been sitting in there for 10 seconds. Like, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Like, well, Mark, what do you want us to do? The customer wants the fries. And my answer is, what I want you to do is prep it the way it's written in the documents and in the manuals, and get your head out of your you-know-what and run the business the right way. So again, it's you did it for what you thought was the right reasons. I got customers, it's my business. But again, that's what's going to take you away. And ultimately, if you kept doing it and didn't ask the question, and the regional guy came in, you'd have gotten written up.
Oh yeah.
Right? And if you get written up a couple times, they're going to take your franchise from you because they can't have that.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.